Shalom, shalom, Israel. We are live. We are back in action. I'm with Brother Elisha.
Brother Amiaki.
And we'll have Brother Mawula join us in a little bit. But today's class, this segment, it will be kind of the next phase or the next part two, so to speak, of the class I taught last month. Unfortunately, for some reason, the class was not saved on YouTube. I'm going to figure out what that's about in a little bit, see if it maybe got put in the archives or something like that. But that class was titled The Fruits of the Spirit, Magnified Version of the Law. And to kind of sum it up, we went into explaining the purpose of the law, explaining how the law was the beginning stages for us to understand Christ, the beginning stages or the outline. And we're going to go over some verses again to reiterate the same points, but how the law was the outline of what was to come. It was giving us an idea of how Christ wanted us to operate in the future. And we couldn't figure it out during that time. We couldn't figure out the purpose. We couldn't figure out the spirit behind the rules and regulations. We got very rudimentary. And as Israel do, we'll find loopholes and decide what we want to focus on and what we choose not to focus on. And more times than not, our nature is to focus on the easier, more external aspects of the law and not work on the more nitty-gritty, impactful or important parts of said law. So today's version of the class will be called The Biblical Standard of the Churches of Peter and Paul. And what we're working towards is eventually getting into explaining the fruits of the Spirit and the lust of the flesh. But before we jump in straight into the identifying points of Galatians 5, I want to kind of give more history and more background of the churches and why they went into this aspect of serving Christ, this aspect of serving the Most High, versus the traditional, just throw the book at you and you got 600 some laws figured out, you're going to die tomorrow. Why did they go into why did they choose a different way of teaching Israelites that have been lost and separated and scattered versus what was traditionally done? So that's what we're going to cover again. We're going to go over some background verses to kind of catch us up. If you guys missed last classes, we'll give us kind of a good synopsis of what we taught and we went over, and we'll go into the new information in a second. So first things first, before we start, did anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns about this topic from the last time? If you remember what we went over, any question at all?
What was the title of the last class that got erased?
The last class that got erased was The Fruits of the Spirit, Magnified Version of the Law. Again, I looked for it this morning. I couldn't find it. I don't know what happened to it. It was a good prep class. Luckily, we didn't get into anything substantial yet. A lot of it, the first part of it, we were answering questions that was kind of off topic. So we didn't break much of the service. But it was a good kind of stepping stone to get into this phase of the class. Because now we're going to go into the churches and Acts 15 and explaining what their verdict for Paul was and his churches was. So, yeah, kind of. So we had that set up, but let's. If there's no questions, we'll move on. Hold on, I got a phone call. Shalom, sir. I'm in class, but what's going on? Nah, don't worry about it, man. All right, so. Salaki. All right. So, to start it off, let's get to the first scripture. It is Isaiah 42 and verse 21. Again, shout out shalom to the brothers out in Rochester, New York, Houston, and Virginia. Those brothers are fighting, staying strong. Hope to see you guys soon at the Passover. And Kyle Cobb and his congregation out in Guatemala. Those he's teaching, him and his sons are teaching over there in California as well, and in Georgia. Shout out shalom to you all. Again, the title of the class is The Biblical Standard of the Churches of Peter and Paul. So, first verse we're going to get into is Isaiah 42 and verse 21.
Isaiah chapter 42, verse 21.
Now again, the background of this chapter, when you read from the beginning to the end, it's explaining Christ. His purpose, his impact that he's going to have on the world. It's one of the many chapters that are prophesying of the coming of the Messiah, prophesying the coming of Christ. So give me this one verse, verse 21.
Isaiah chapter 42, verse 21. The Most High is well pleased for his righteousness.
He's talking about the Most High, the Heavenly Father, is well pleased for Christ's righteousness' sake. what Christ was about to do on this world, what he was about to establish, what he was about to enforce, what his name and his impact was about to signify for the nations. Read on.
The Most High is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law.
Christ will magnify the law. Last month when we went over this, we went over how magnifying meant to make greater. So Christ, when he comes down, his purpose was to make the law greater, or make the understanding of the law greater, make the application of said law greater. Read on.
He will magnify the law and make it honorable.
And will make it to where it's respectable, to where the people who follow said law are respectable, to people who stand on the basis in the name of Christ are respectable individuals, are individuals that you can look at and go, this is an Israelite, this is a man or woman of God, because of how they live, not just on the surface like we were accustomed to living by. Let's make that a little less smoky, bro. Not just on the custom or on the exterior surface, but literally living and embodying what the Spirit of Christ is about. When this new generation comes in following Christ, because of his impact, there will be a change. There will be a revolution, a righteous revolution. So with that being said, give me Hebrews verse 10, or Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 1 through 3.
Hebrews chapter 10, verse 1.
And the reason we're going here, again, this is a playback, so to speak, but we're trying to establish what Christ's original impact was and what the law was supposed to do for us. The original law that we got and received from Moses. Not that it was wicked, not that it was off, not that the law was imperfect, but at the time, the application and the examples of those who lived after the law were not perfect, which is why it became faulty. Read that in verse 1.
Hebrews chapter 10, verse 1. For the law, having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those sacrifices which they offered year by year continually make the comers thereunto perfect.
Anybody in class, except for the officers, know what that means. What does that first verse mean? Anybody? Read it again.
Hebrews chapter 10, verse 1.
I'm going to slow it down intentionally because we can run through this as fast as possible, but it doesn't make sense if we know what's going on and nobody else knows what's going on. So I might stop and I might pull, I might have brothers try to break this down for me randomly. So just make sure you guys are attentive and you're listening. If it doesn't make any sense, let me know it doesn't make any sense before I call on you. And you tell me, okay, I don't get it. It didn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense if I know it and y'all don't. All right? So read it again.
For the law, having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those...
Hold on. Right there. That's important. What does that first part mean? For the law having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things. Anybody let me know what that means? The law was perfect, yes or no? Okay. Y'all believe that, right? The law is perfect? Okay. If the law was perfect, why was our application flawed? Let me ask you a question. Your mom and your pops, they give you rules and regulations in the house. They say, hey, when you wake up in the morning, you do what? What's the first thing you do? Make your bed. Go brush your teeth. Go put some deodorant on. Go take a shower if you didn't take a shower last night. Get your books ready. Eat your breakfast. And make sure your room and your area is clean before you leave. That's your law. That's your rules, your regulations. That's perfect. I mean, the understanding is perfect. It's do this, don't do this. Clean your room, don't leave it messy. Take a shower, don't be dirty. Brush your teeth, don't have plaque in your mouth. Eat breakfast, don't go to school hungry. It's a very simple concept, right? The Most High also operates that way with us as well. Don't eat these certain foods because I say it's abominable. Don't associate yourself with certain people because I say they will defile you. Don't sacrifice to certain concepts, idols, or quote-unquote gods because I say that's wicked. It's a pretty clear-cut example or pretty clear-cut manual on how to live and how to operate. What makes it hard for us to follow isn't the rules and the regulations. Why is it hard for us to follow? Because we don't want to do what? Because we don't want to follow the rules and regulations. I don't want to wake up and make my bed every morning. I don't want to wake up and brush my teeth every morning. I'd rather get up and go play the game. I'd rather get up and go talk to my friends. I'd rather sleep in until it's too late, and now I can't make my bed, eat breakfast, take a shower because I'm running late now. The reason why the rules and regulations gets thrown off or gets diverted or gets perverted in this sense is because we as people are the imperfect people, are the imperfection. To add on top of that, you have your world leaders who are supposed to symbolize righteousness, right? If you were a king back in the day, you were supposed to symbolize this is the standard of living. This is the standard of righteousness you're supposed to have. This is the standard of excellence. If you were a priest, you were the standard of excellence. But if the said priest, you're seeing them make mistakes, be killers in their example, not follow the law, then what does that give you the idea or notion to do? Well, if they're not on point, then why should I be on point? So you have this constant cycle of loopholes that Israel is looking for. What loophole can I find so I don't have to operate at this high, strict level of lifestyle? You know what Israel doesn't want to do? They don't want to be confined to a standard of living. They want fluidity. Really want confusion. I want to be able to act, live, eat, move, think how I want. But the Bible constrains us. The Bible limits my free thought. The Bible limits my free movement. The Bible limits my free action. So really, we're fighting to be liberal, fighting to be free. But if I see someone else being free and they're in a higher position than me, or they're in a respected position than me, then that gives me an excuse. Or if no one's going to kill me right then and there for not following this one law, then why do it? If all I got to do is sacrifice, pay my $200 a month. Me and Miyate, I think one time one deliveries. I told the story before, but we found out that a goat costs $300. You know what else costs $300? A speeding ticket. So if I got $300, I got to pay that goat up. I'm going to pay that $300, and I'm probably going to be speeding after like 2 weeks. I might be cool for a week or two, but after 2 weeks, I'm going to be pushing at 5 miles, 7 miles, 10 miles. You look up, you're going 90 on a 75. Now you're back at that 15 over range again, and you're back at that $300. What's the point? Israel, if they're not getting something hard enough, if there's not a tight restraint on their lifestyle, we're going to go back to seeking liberty and doing what we want to do again. So now give me that first verse again. Now we got a little more clarity on why the law was just a shadow of good things to come, but not the very image. The law wasn't the image or it wasn't the perfect representation of how we were supposed to operate, because we were not perfect. That's why it was flawed. Not the law, but the people. Read again.
Hebrews 10, verse 1. For the law, having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never, with those sacrifices which they offered year by year, continually, make the comers thereunto perfect.
So what we are doing as people is understanding, you know what, I've got 15 goats I can spend on my sins this year. As long as I don't sin enough to kill me, I can keep doing my dirt. As long as I got $10,000 to cover me and my family's sins of goats or doves or bullocks, I can keep doing my dirt. I don't have to make any substantial changes, because I did what the law said. If you sin, you kill the bullock. If you sin, you kill the dove. If your family sins, you kill X amount of bullocks, X amount of goats. And that's all it is. Then what does Israel do after a while? It's just routine. Because ideally, if you're killing your pet every single day, every year, you should feel kind of bad about it. But if it becomes culture, then that's just part of culture. That's just part of your daily life. The kids grow up and they see the parents don't really care about it as much, then are they going to care about it? No. If the kids see that, this is what we do every single year, we just kill our animals and that's what we do, well, they know the significance or not. They're just going to kill their animals like normal, and they're not going to ever know they're slipping. They're not going to ever know they're falling off the correct path of life. This is where the law was falling short at.
And that's like, nowadays you have a job and you have, quote unquote, play money. I got this play money.
Okay.
I'm going to go spend it. We're going to go splurge a little bit, go to the mall. We're going to ball out,
Okay.
have bags, buy things, eat some ice cream for the kids. And the kids see this growing up, they're like, man, they're just spending money.
Just play money.
They don't know that that's not money for the bills.
Exactly.
So they see that, but they don't know the ins and outs of how a house is ran, how the bills are paid,
Okay.
how to balance a budget.
Okay.
So they see that, and then they think later on in life, you know what? Why am I falling behind now? My
Yeah.
parents were able to do it. How come I'm not able to do it?
Yep.
We have our own interpretation of what we want it to be.
And that's when the depression kicks in. And I've gone over the term before. It's called white suburban depression, because
That's the term.
that was the sociology term I got from.
Oh.
That's what I was taught. And the reason why they said that is that particular demographic, they grow up sheltered, they grow up protected, they grow up with the ideal lifestyle. And then you realize when you're in the world, life's not as easy. You might have lived an upper middle class life, but now you got to make that money. Now you can't just go to the store and buy red bottoms because you want to. Or I can't just go to the store or now my Mercedes that my pop bought me is too expensive to take care of, because Mercedes, I don't know if y'all know, just from oil change is like $250, $300.
Yeah.
If something breaks down, that's $1,000, $1,500, just
You
like
don't
that.
change that oil on the regular. It's not going to work.
It gets bad really quick.
Get a Toyota.
So this lifestyle you thought you were living, that you could have just translated from high school straight to making big bucks, isn't the reality for most people. Then there's the depression. I'm not living up to my potential. I'm failing in life. Now I don't know what I want to be anymore. I don't know what's going on. The point I'm going into is, if we don't see the proper standard growing up, being established of what these sacrifices meant, then we weren't going to follow correctly, which we didn't, which is why it just became routine to us. So, I don't want to get too far off of that point. Let's bring it back in. The reason we're going here is we're explaining the law wasn't the problem. It was the outline. It was the beginning to getting to know Christ. It was the principles. It was the building blocks. For us, we can consider it as our schoolmaster. You need your schoolmaster. So when it's time to go to higher levels, higher grade schools, to college, you're not falling behind. I need this foundation, so to speak. So I'm not surprised when Christ's talking about adultery is when a man thinks about committing adultery. Oh, what is adultery? What is the principle of adultery? A man taking a married woman. Okay, that's the principle. How about the next level is, if you even think about it, you're slipping.
Yeah.
Where are you starting though? You just going straight to thought process? So again, the Most High gave us an outline. He gave us a foundation, but we messed that foundation up. Let's finish it up all the way to verse 3.
Hebrews chapter 10, verse 2. For then would they not have ceased to be offered, because that the worshippers, once purged, should have had no more conscience of sins. But in those sacrifices, there was a remembrance again made of sins every year.
Ideally, once you've made your sacrifices, once you went through your grieving process, not just you're grieving because you lost your money, but you're grieving because you lost your best animal. Remember, you're not sacrificing your sick animals. You're sacrificing the best that you got. That was the rules. So after you've not just grieved you lost your money for the year, but you grieve you lost the best animal, which you put time into, which you nursed the life, nursed the health, took care of. You're supposed to forget the sin. You're supposed to have a clear conscience. You're supposed to have a conscience that has moved forward. That has moved forward from those same actions. The problem is the law or the application at that time did not permit that change in us. Did not give us that level of consciousness. So let that go. Give me 1 John 3 and verse 4 through 10. Might have to cut that out, bro. It's flaring me up. It's like y'all. These allergies coming in. And I ain't gonna lie. I did a bad thing and I had a donut.
Had a donut.
And it's coming up. So if you hear me coughing, it was the conchas I had this week. It was the donuts. It was the sugar bread, the pan dulce, all that. So excuse me, but we're gonna get through it today. So We are at 1 John 3 and 4 through 10. Again, we're going through kind of the rerun of last class before we get into the new aspect of the class. The class is titled The Biblical Standard of the Churches of Peter and Paul. The first couple of verses that we went into, we were explaining the significance for Christ coming. He was going to magnify the law. He was going to make it better. He was going to make the example better for the followers as well. The next verse we went into, which is Hebrews 10, we explained how the law was the outline of good things to come. It was the beginning of us getting to understand the mind of the Most High, coming from a beast, immature. What's a better word for? Not immature. Ignorant. An ignorant conscience of the Most High. Straight from Egypt, serving gods. I think there was a God for every day of the week. You're serving God for every day of the week. So what God did for us is, I'm just going to give you the most basic outline of what I want you to live by. And that was the start. That wasn't the finish. That was the start. So, we're explaining how that start had good intentions, but the application is why we fell off. When we started getting into the rudimentary aspect of the law, we started finding loopholes of how to get around the change, or we just got accustomed to the killing, accustomed to the sacrifice, accustomed to the culture, and didn't take it past just this is our culture. We didn't make it a lifestyle. That's when the law became of no effect to us. It didn't change our minds anymore. It didn't influence our hearts. It didn't influence our conscience. And we kept making the same sins over and over and over again. And we look up, we wonder why our kingdoms are falling. We're put in slavery generation after generation after generation. And now we're completely dispersed all over the four corners of the earth. This is how we got there from here. So, next verse is 1 John 3, verse 4 through 10.
1 John chapter 3, verse 4. Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law.
So we understand, for those that are coming from a Christian mindset, a Catholic mindset, sin was a transgression of the law. Sin is the breaking of the rules and regulations that the Most High put in place for us to follow. It wasn't what your pastor said. It wasn't what man had created. There was literally rules and regulations that that outline what's a sin and what's not a sin, what needs to be changed and what needs to be enforced. The Bible is clear cut in that. Keep reading.
God, for sin is the transgression of the law, and ye know that he was manifest to take away our sins, and in him is no sin. Whosoever abideth in him sinneth not. Whosoever sinneth hath not seen him, neither know him.
And this was important because last week we were explaining how when Christ came down, gave us the better example, and that example was taught to us. There was supposed to be a changing. There was supposed to be a evolution to how we operated, how we thought, and how we interacted with one another. That evolution was supposed to prevent us or give us a strong enough conscience to not keep repeating the same sins over and over and over again. That's the evidence that Christ is there. When you keep repeating the same sins, when you keep making the same mistakes, that is evidence also that Christ is not there. So the Most High is even making it even more clear for us that your actions should let you know where you stand with the Most High. Should let you know where, if you have His Spirit or not. So there's no surprises. He's not, we're going to go into later, He's not sitting here saying you're accountable for every single thing in this book. And I'm going to explain that a little more in detail. So don't go running off of that yet. Let me explain that. But He is explaining that whatever you do know, you are accountable for. Whatever you do get taught, whatever you do get led through, you are accountable for. And you can't use the excuse of, oh, well, next year I'm going to figure it out. Or I got time. Because taking that mentality is the same mentality that we've took since the beginning of time. It's the same reason why we've never changed. I've got time. The sin's not that bad. There's worse people out there. At least I'm not a murderer. At least I'm not a whatever. There's worse people than me. That mentality is why you won't make the kingdom. So he's being very clear with who he wants to proclaim his name and what type of character, what type of conscience we have to have. So keep reading. We're going to read out verse 10.
God, verse 7. Little children, let no man deceive you. He that doeth righteousness is righteous, even as he is righteous.
You know what that means? Saying, I had the intentions of being good. I tried, Lord. There is no trying. Either you are or you aren't. Well, they misunderstood me. No, either you were trying to be, or you were being righteous, you were being sincere, you were being godly, or you were not. There's no gray area with the Most High. There's no confusion. He knows your heart. He knows your spirit. He knows your intentions. Keep reading.
Verse 8. He that committeth sin is of the devil. For the devil sinned from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of the Most High was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil.
The purpose for Christ coming on earth was to give us a fighting chance to resist the devil. Now, War went into class and he's going over a series about Satan and his influence and what that means for us. There is a physical, there's a principality, Satan. There's an influence on the world, meaning everything around us is set to give us a sin. It's set to give us a distraction. It's set to give us a temptation. But there's also the Satan in us, or the aspect in us that wants to rebel. A rebellious spirit is a satanic spirit. The side of us that doesn't want to conform. The side of us that wants to be free. The side of us that doesn't want restrictions. The side of us that doesn't want a disciplined lifestyle is the Satan in us. And Christ manifested himself to give us a fighting chance or give us a fighting example of how to block out or how to fight back that evil side of us. That's why he came down. Because his first messengers weren't enough. The people weren't convinced enough. His first prophets didn't convince people to change. So he came down in his flesh to give us a fighting shot. Let's keep reading.
God, verse 9. Whosoever is born of the Lord, his seed remaineth in him, and he cannot sin, because he is born of the Most High. In this, the children of the Most High are manifest, and the children of the devil. Whosoever doeth not righteousness is not of the Most High.
What I want to do, is that all 10?
That was almost the end of
Yeah, finish all 10. Yes, sir.
God. Whosoever doeth not righteousness is not of the Most High, neither he that loveth not his brother.
What was that verse? I'm blank. I think it was in Ephesians. To make your calling and election sure. What was that at? It's in Ephesians what?
Calling election sure.
It's not Ephesians. It's 2 Peter's. Yeah, give me that real quick. The reason I want to go there is because I'm going to read verse 9 in 1 John 3. Whosoever is born of the Most High doth not commit sin, for his seed remaineth in him, and he cannot sin because he is born of the Most High. First and foremost, we're all sinners. So no man that's born on the earth is going to be born and is never going to sin. The only one who did that and accomplished that feat was Christ. What he is saying is, if you persist in sin, that's the spirit that you are in. That's your father at that time. If I persist in my mistakes, my father, my God is Satan. Well, I decide to finally fight back and make adjustments, make changes. Now my father is Christ. This is why this is a forever battle for us. Until Christ comes down and puts his law in your hearts, rewrites the way you think and function on a molecular, cellular, spiritual level, this is an endless fight for us. Give me that in 2 Peter 1 and verse 10.
2 Peter 1 and verse 10. Wherefore the brethren, give diligence to make your calling and election sure.
Why is he saying that? Because Christ knows who you are for him. He knows what role you're going to play. He knows what life you're destined to have. The only person that does not know is who? It's us. We don't know how the Most High looks at us. We don't know if he's pleased with us. We don't know if he expects more from us. We don't know if he's frustrated with our last year's works. Because we're in Passover time. So this is a time also for reflection. Every time we get into the high holy days, it's great times to reflect on how we've been. How have you been? Can I reflect and honestly say, you know what? The Most High is pleased with my efforts this year. Did I offend less this year? This is why it says make your calling an election sure. You have to put the work in so that you know without a shadow of doubt, I'm on the correct path right now. Right now, I am in a spiritual fight. I am in a godly mindset. I am in a godly conscious mindset, not a satanic one. I've had less fights. I've had less rebellions. I've had less. I've failed less to my temptations. I've made improvements. Then from that standard, improve even more the next year and keep going that direction. Versus, I had more fights. I fell into more temptations, more lust. I lost more battles in the spirit. I got into more fights with my husband, more fights with my wife. The fight's now getting physical. My relations with my brothers and sisters have fallen apart. I am on the cusp of not even being associated with the Most High at all. That is a backward track, or a that should give you an idea of where you're standing as well. So all these examples are reflectionary examples. This verse is telling you to reflect. Are you making your calling and election sure? Read on.
For if ye do these things, ye shall never fall.
If I put that self-urgency, if I put that pressure on myself, that I got to keep working to be sure. I'm not so sure about this last year. I'm not so sure about this last month. I'm not so sure about myself these last 5 years. I need to keep changing. I need to keep growing. I need to keep improving. If I put that pressure on myself, you won't fall too far from the mark. So let that go. Let's get back to the class. Hebrews 10, verse 16 through 17.
Hebrews chapter 10, verse 16.
One second. Read that.
Hebrews chapter 10, verse 16. This is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their hearts, and in their minds will I write them. And their sins and iniquities will I remember no more.
What Paul's explaining is the righteous acts that we're supposed to be practicing. Whatever I've gotten taught, am I rehearsing? Am I living? Am I enforcing in myself? Am I making that a part of who I am? Am I making this conversion a daily part of who I am? This is what, obviously we're not here yet. We haven't gotten to the end days where the Most High has put the laws in our heart. But if I'm practicing this, I am now in a fighting posture. Let that go. We're going to come back to Hebrews in a little bit, so hold there. Ephesians 5 and verse 9 through 11.
Ephesians 5 and 9, in verse 9. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness and righteousness and truth.
Yep.
Proving what is acceptable unto the Lord.
So my conscience, because now it's revealing what conscience am I supposed to be playing with every day? What aspect of this life, what thoughts am I supposed to be looking for? What answers am I supposed to be looking for every single day? Read verse 9 again.
Verse 9. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness and righteousness and truth.
The fruit of the Spirit. Again, we're going to go into that class later, but we're supposed to be looking for what fruits of the Spirit is acceptable. Read on verse 10.
Verse 10. Proving what is acceptable unto the Lord.
What thoughts, what laws, what disciplines can I take on to myself so I can be in the good grace of the Most High? So I know I'm on the correct path and I'm not slipping. I'm not losing my discipline. Verse 11.
And having no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness.
And separating myself from the unfruitful thoughts, unfruitful actions, unfruitful people. What makes them unfruitful is they're pulling me further and further away from a spiritual mentality. They're pulling me further and further away from discipline. They're pulling me further away from fighting my flesh, fighting my temptations, fighting my battles. They're not feeding my will to want to fight. They're not feeding my will to want to overcome said temptations. That is the darkness that we're supposed to be having no fellowship with. Read on.
And having no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them.
Reproving those thoughts. It's not saying go to war every single darkness you see, because there's too much. The world is dark. It's reproving the darkness in yourself. Not letting that darkness, that temptation, that contrary spirit overcome you. Become the main spirit. Become the main dominant thoughts. Become the force that makes you less disciplined. The force that makes you less loving. The force that makes you less understanding. That makes it harder for you to give men and women the benefit of the doubt. That makes it harder for you to sit here and build relations and sustain relations after you've been offended in the camp. That makes it harder for you to fight you. That's the thoughts we're supposed to be reproving. That's the mentality that should be getting elevated, increased, and strengthened as you spend more time in the truth. And that will let you know if you're on point or not. Let that go. Give me let's go back to Hebrews 10 and verse 26.
Hebrews chapter 10, verse 26.
So like I know we're kind of moving fast, and I've been a bad guy and not keeping the verses up to date. I'm gonna let you do that. I'm out there. I did this last time too. My fault. So right now we're on Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 26. We just came from Ephesians 5 and verse 9 through 11. Give me that.
Chapter 10, verse 26.
Yep.
For if we sin willfully, after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sin.
Read that again.
For if we sin willfully.
That's important. Because if you see in street speaking videos, right? The common statement when you get someone who really doesn't want to change and is looking for a way out of hearing the word, like if a brother's telling another stranger, like, yeah, you need to change and serve God and start following the laws, commandments of the Most High. The first answer you normally hear is, "Well, are you perfect in the law? You make no mistakes? You're just so perfect. You've never sinned in your life." What he's saying is, are you willfully sinning? Obviously, there's mistakes we're making every single day that we're not conscious of. What we're going to go into is that's not what he's holding you accountable for. He's holding you accountable for the 6 months you've been in when you've been getting counseled every day to respect your husband. He's holding you accountable for the year you've been in when he told you got to operate this way with men. You got to have this level of tact with your talking, this level of discipline with the brothers around you. He's holding you accountable for the months that you've been trained on how to talk to other sisters and build relationships. The years Bud has been in the camp and learned how to operate cordially, spiritually, brotherly. That's what he's holding you accountable for. What do you know? What have you been instilled with? What have you been counseled on? What have you been trained on? What standard did the camp tell you have to follow to be in the right path of the Most High? Because we're also going to go into how the standards for said camps are also different. What standard did this camp hold you accountable for? And are you completing with said standard? If you are not in compliance with said standard, you are off. And that's the sinning willfully. If you're told your duty in this camp is to do X, Y, and Z, and you say, I don't want to do that, that can be your job is to be the sower. And you better spend nights after work going and sewing extra hours. And the back of your mind is saying, I don't want to do that. I don't want that to be my role. That can be your job is not to be the sower, but to be the one to take care of the kids. And you say in the back of your mind, I don't want to be the caretaker. That can be your job is to be the truck driver. And you work long hours. And you come to class. And you say in the back of your mind, I don't think that's necessary. I don't want to do that either. That's what's being held accountable. That can be your only requirement right now is to come to class twice a week. That's too much. I don't do that either. That's what you're being held accountable for. And the Most High deals with us in measure accordingly. So, read that again.
Hebrews chapter 10, verse 26. For if we sin willfully, after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sin.
Because what was the point of having this great example, this elevated example of Christ, this elevated spiritual example that showed us what to do, what not to do, lived it, was perfect, died, had apostles and saints that followed after that were also solid in the faith, just for you to be like, you know what, that's still not good enough. Or I'm not convinced enough to change. I'm not convinced enough to turn my life around. Then why give you all that information? Why give you the opportunity to change? If you're not going to do anything with it in the first place, then let me give that time, let me give that information and that spirit and my saints to develop somebody else instead. If you're not going to appreciate it. Keep reading.
Verse 27. But a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery.
Hold that. I don't want that one. My fault. So, the sinning willfully is we receive the information, we receive the grace, we receive the spirit, the what to do, what not to do, and we say, I don't want to do that. Or I don't think it's necessary. I don't think I have to change this part of myself. Or why are you pushing me to change so much in myself? I've already changed these other things. That willful, there's another word for it, Numbers 30. Presumptuous. That presumptuous mind is what got us into destruction, what got the Most High hating us and vexing us in Egypt. Telling the Lord, whatever you're telling me to do is too much, Lord. Whatever instruction, discipline you're telling me to do is not acceptable. I don't feel like I need to do it. I don't feel like I have to change that. So now, let that go. Romans 3:31. I'm flying through this class. We might not go 2 hours, but it's okay. If I finish this, it's
Are you ready?
I'm not going to the fruit of the spirit to this. Yes, sir.
Romans chapter 3, verse 31.
Not today, no. Okay.
Do we then make void the law through faith?
So what we're doing is, I know this is kind of a jump and a kind of hard transition, but what I want to establish and point out is, we're not saying the law is irrelevant. We're not saying now that we have grace, now that we have Christ, now that we have this new example, that the law no longer matters. Like we said in the first verse, Christ is the edification of the law. His example still fulfills the law. It's just how we go about it, and the source of where we get our discipline, the source of where we get our understanding, now comes from Him, and not just the law. So what Paul is saying is, read that again.
God, do we then make void the law through faith? The Most High forbid.
He said, God forbid. Just because we have faith in Christ now doesn't mean the law does not matter anymore. Doesn't mean the old integral law has no impact, has no significance. In fact, the integral law is the root of everything we teach anyway.
The basics, the fundamentals, we can't discard those.
We can't discard them, but it's the clarity that the old law did not give us. New Testament is saying the same thing. If you understand it enough, it's saying the same thing as the Old Testament, but it wasn't as clear as it is now. So, he's saying we have to establish the law. Now, what we're going to read is how did the Antigual churches, the first Christian churches, Israelite churches, again, Christian just means follower of Christ, Israelite churches establish the law. What did they establish? What did they enforce? What was the standard for them? So, Acts 15, verse 5 through 21. We're going to take our time with this because this is, we're going to be dealing from two different perspectives. Remember, during this time, for those who don't know, there were Israelites who were born and raised in Israel. So if I'm born and raised in a place, what do I have?
All customs,
You have the customs, tradition,
language,
dress code, culture. Meaning your law is not part of your what? Identity and culture. So if I go to the store, right, and my culture is Antigua law, will it be open on Fridays and Saturdays? No.
nope.
If the old law, the culture is when women were unclean, they stayed away from the masses and they had their own space. Are you going to be defiled when you go out in the markets? Ever? No. Because that's the culture, right? Are you going to see pork in your markets ever? No. Are you going to see Christmas lights in the streets?
Nope.
No. Is Easter a thing? No. Look at how much culturally you would not see if you were born as an Israelite. How much you just grow up doing it unconsciously because you were born an Israelite. But you're still falling short in the law. How does that make sense? Now, that's one perspective, right? Next perspective. I grew up where the markets is only pork. For instance, Cuba, right? Cuba, in certain parts, it is unlawful to buy beef. You cannot buy ground beef for whatever reason. I haven't looked into it yet, but you cannot buy it. Except for special occasions. I think it's like certain holidays, you might be able to buy a pound or so. So the main markets is what? Pork. Mostly pork. It's the cheapest meat you can get. It's pork. Pork everything. You grow up eating pork. You grow up serving all the idols, all the gods of Cuba.
Yep.
I'm only using Cuba because it's the most recent one I looked up. And it's recent versus saying ancient Greece. Markets is pork. Holidays is all idolatry. Customs, the traditions, it's got pagan, it's got witchcraft involved into it.
Yep.
Without you even knowing it. So you grow up 15, 20, 30 years, and that's your whole life. That's the second perspective.
Same thing with Mexico.
Mexico's the same kind. All the South American countries the same way. Same thing in Haiti. Same thing in Haiti. I know I looked at you on my phone. I wasn't. You go over Haiti, it's just real wicked over there. It's straight voodoo.
Yeah. Don't touch
It's straight witchcraft.
Don't touch a dollar bill on the ground.
That's the point. But the customs and traditions you have, the wickedness is so ingrained in the culture, you don't even recognize it as wickedness.
It becomes the new norm.
But that's important because we have two standards and two churches. We have Peter's church and Paul's church. Peter's church is the church that grew up Israelite, grew up with the righteous customs, grew up with the standard of living that was already integrated in the Bible. Then you have Paul's churches, who you're dealing with beasts, who have no idea of anything about God, but serving idols since they were born. And the idea of a one God concept doesn't even make sense to them. That's very important to this story and very important to how it even translates into our journeys now. Because there's not one community that's 100% Israelite culture, Israelite back for generation to generation to generation. Where both parents are Israelites, their parents are Israelites, their parents' parents are Israelites. And you've got a entire 100 years of just righteousness. Righteousness, quote unquote. So we don't have that now even so. So we're more similar to what culture? Paul's churches. The beastly churches. Coming out of the world. Coming out of idolatry households. Idolatrous customs. Poisonous foods. Poisonous dress wear. So, I just wanted to state that. So we're reading this. We're going to read the elements of how Paul was able to understand how Peter was able to understand why Paul didn't enforce certain standards on those beastly or worldly individuals. Okay? So, Acts 15 and verse 5. If you're confused, there's questions, please slow me down. I'm not trying to rush this. Alright? So, Acts 15 and verse 5.
Acts chapter 15 and verse 5. But there rose up certain of the sect of the Pharisees which believed, saying that it was needful to circumcise them and to command them to keep the law of Moses.
Pause that real quick. This one verse is very important to understand why Paul wrote the letters he wrote and why he was so argumentative and why he was so fixated on disproving this concept. Because these were Israelites that were converted, that were following Christ, still saying this. These aren't just Israelites that were in the synagogues that didn't believe in Christ. Israelites that converted, that believed in Christ, but also believed in you got to be 613 law accurate follower, or you're not going to make it. And you better be circumcised or you're not going to make it. This was Israelites that were born in Israel, that followed Christ, were still forcing this on barbarian Greeks who were wearing togas. Or Athenians who had just stopped serving Athena. the Greek goddess, and they're coming straight in first day, and they're being told if you don't cut certain parts off you, and you don't sit here and change your dress code right now, and you don't sit here and stop doing everything that you thought was you, that made you you, right now, you're not gonna make it.
And as a grown man, it's gonna make you cringe. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yes, it's like I gotta do all this just to sit here and start to learn God.
Yeah,
How about I'm not even convinced yet? I don't even know if I want to do God yet.
yeah. This is the initiation.
And you're putting all these standards, all this weight on me, and I just came in the door. Now, our church understands this, our camp understands this, because that's not enforcing anybody here. First day, you're not getting told, but take your hat off right now, put some fringes on. If you ain't got no fringes on, get out the house. If you ate pork before you got in here, get out the house. If you're sitting here unclean sexually right now, get out the house. If you just smoked a joint before you got in here and you're on first day, get out the house right now.
You dealing with them like they already know the law.
That's the point. Because you know what was a hard concept for our people to accept? That, well, there's a couple of aspects. One is the superiority concept. Because Israel always thinks superior. If I was born in Israel, if I grew up in the culture, I think I'm better than guys coming off the street. That's where the Jake concept comes about. Oh, this guy's this Jake. How about that Jake in 5 years might be more righteous than you are? Yep. This is Paul's idea. This guy who's Jake that you're disrespecting could be the next leader. Yep. Could be teaching you in a couple of years. Give him enough time to learn what this is about. So how is this Jake guy more spiritual, more spiritually accurate than the guy who was born in this? That was Paul's argument, but that's another story. I just want to focus on this point because there was a lot of contentions and beefs with Israelites that were just newly converted, still forcing a very rigid, very disciplined, very harsh standard on new converts. You don't sit here and throw the book at a new convert who doesn't even know what it's about, who's coming from Egyptology, who's coming from Catholicism, who's coming from Buddhism, and they have no idea what this Christ thing is about, who's Muslim. They don't even know what this is about. And you're making them change everything about themselves in one day or in a short period of time, or they're not going to make it. This is what Paul was fighting against. And he had positive results. This is what he's coming to tell the people. Say, hey, I didn't throw the book at them. I gave them milk they can chew on. I didn't give them meat immediately. I gave them what they can handle. And I built congregations. This is the background. This is the history of the story. All right? So, read it again from the top. Acts 15:5.
Verse 5. But there rose up certain of the sect of the Pharisees, which believed, saying that it was needful to circumcise them and to command them to keep the law of Moses. And the apostles and elders came together to consider of this matter.
Again, this is a very controversial period. This is a newly formed church that now they have to decide, okay, what standard as a church, as a body, are we going to enforce? Not just internally in Jerusalem, but also they just had the Pentecost. The Pentecost is one of the 3 high holy days where all the men, all the Israelites have to report together. And in that Pentecost, I'm not going to go there, but it's Acts 2. They had Greeks, they had Egyptians, they had Turkish from Cyprus, they had Athenians, they had all types of people from all over the Eastern Hemisphere at that Pentecost, speaking different languages. And that's when it became real for them. Like, oh, this is bigger than just us. This is bigger than just our city, our country, our little world, our Israelite world. We're all over the place. So, with that new realization, this new camp they've got, they need to set new boundaries for these camps. What standards are we going to enforce on these camps so they have an easier transition into this Christ thing that we're doing? All right, keep reading.
Okay. Verse 7. And when there had been much disputing, Peter rose up and said unto them, Men and brethren, ye know how that men and brethren, ye know how that a good while ago the Most High made choice among us, that the Gentiles by my mouth should hear the word of the gospel and believe. And the Most High, which knoweth the hearts, bear them witness, giving them the Holy Spirit, even as he did unto us, and put no difference between us and them purifying their hearts by faith.
Okay, so like I said, he's referring to the Acts 2 Pentecost when all these different Israelite brothers who are wearing different outfits, different customs, different belief systems, different languages, all of a sudden get the Spirit put on them as well. And now they're understanding everyone's tongue. One man speaking Greek and another one speaking Hebrew, but I understand what he's saying. That's like today, we got a French brother, a Spanish brother, an English brother, and
German brother.
and a German brother, and they're all speaking their home language, and I understand everything they're saying. I'm not a polyglot. I never spoke their language in my life, but all of a sudden we get each other. That's what he meant by the Holy Spirit went on them as well, and the faith increased. So this realization, or this event, sparked a change in even their own communities. We got to think long term. We got to think outside of ourselves now. We got to think, what is the future of our faith going to look like? Because Israel, or the Israelite, the Christ belief, the Christ standard, is not just going to be centered in Israel forever. It's already spreading abroad. So what standards can we put on the people so that everyone can follow the same path? This is what Peter is realizing as they're discussing what to do with these Israelites. Read on.
Right. It says, now, therefore, why tempt ye the Most High to put a yoke upon the neck of the disciples, which neither our fathers nor we were able to bear?
What does that mean, class? Anybody can answer that for me?
They're trying to hold it to a standard that they themselves can keep.
Like what? What standard?
Be perfect.
Read verse 5 again.
Right. Verse 5. But there rose up certain of the sect of the Pharisees, which believed, saying that it was needful to circumcise them and to keep the law of Moses.
What standard could Israel, who was born in Israel, whose culture was Israel, could not keep?
The law.
So, if I got a stranger come off the streets, why am I enforcing something on him that even my ancestors couldn't keep? I'm forcing these Greeks who've never even known Christ to live a standard that wasn't realistic for my people whose whole culture is backed by this standard. I look at it in today's time. There was a sister years ago. I don't even remember her name. I don't know. And if this is still in the camp, sorry, I'm throwing you out there. I don't remember what you look like, honestly. But I remember the interaction. And I think you were there too, Nathaniel. And this sister came in, and her whole thing was, I get what y'all... First off, she got up from her seat. It was mid-class. I think a war was teaching that night. She got up from her seat, and she went like right here in front of the podium. And she got in a war. I think it was maybe Shashwan's. You weren't there at the time, I don't think.
Oh, yeah.
No. It ain't recent. I promise you. It's not recent. Y'all weren't here. I promise y'all. This is like, I'm young. I'm like 12, 13.
Oh, yeah.
This is a lasting memory here. No. I'm young at this time. I'm still a young man sleeping in the back of class.
More than one time.
Back of class sleeping, not taking things serious. That's during that time. No, this is it's not recent news. I'm saying it's at Synagogue, and she got up, went to the front of the podium, and she's like, I get everything else I was saying, but I don't understand why I can't wear pants. Like, and then it got hot. And then it got intense. Because it's like, I can get with everything else, but I'm not giving my pants up. Like, that's not happening. And that was just her one thing. Like, I'm not giving pants up. Like, that's my whole wardrobe. Now, at the time, it was kind of funny because after, she did her yell, she stormed the room and everyone was kind of laughing. And there was some verses pulled and we got over it. But what it had me think is, man, there's some people that are literally ride or die for some pants. It's that I'm willing to throw the salvation away for some pants. But how about there's some people that are ride or die for pork?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
There's some people that are ride or die for food.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know what? Gluttony is just as bad as eating pork, sin-wise. If we're being technical, gluttony is just as sinful as eating pork. So if I tell someone, hey, you got to stop eating that amount or you ain't making the kingdom, how many fights is going to be in Israel? You got to eat 1 meal a day, G, or you ain't making the kingdom. You tell me there wouldn't be a similar fight? a similar pen fight, I promise you there would be an uprising.
You're gonna be mad, bro, because all your life you've been.
You better have. If you don't eat these greens, you ain't making the camp. I know brothers in the camp right now don't like greens. They don't like water. But you gotta have a liter of water every day. No, not a liter. A gallon of water every day, or you not making the kingdom. There's gonna be a problem. We look at the cigarette guys. Oh, y'all just wicked. Y'all can't get over cigarettes. Look, I'm gonna tell y'all right now. There's many other aspects of this law that we do every single day, that we indulge in every single day. That's just as bad. But us, we don't think it's that bad. We think the smoking is the worst thing you could do. The tattoos is the worst thing you could do. The pork is the worst thing you could do. The shrimp's the worst thing you could do. They're all bad. But it ain't the only thing that we're doing that is considered sinful. That could potentially be the reason why we don't make it. What are you going to say, Karai?
I was going to say, when you were talking about the gluttony, man, that's real. Like, when you go on YouTube or wherever, you start seeing
the mukbangs out. Seeing the mukbangs? Hey, I've been watching mukbangs. I don't know how they're eating that much food.
Listen, bro, like that's a real thing. They make videos that they get paid. They traveling the world trying different foods, bro. But they wild on camera.
Brother.
No discipline at all. So I mean,
I saw this one white boy, man. I mean, I didn't really watch him over the years, but I kind of saw him towards the end of his little session where he was a skinny white boy. Him and his girlfriend, I think, started. No, it was his girlfriend. Yeah, I think he's one of the boys. He's one of them. But I think him and his friend, homeboy. I think it's one. Yeah, he is one of them. Anyway, he got him and his boy to do these mukbangs every single day, and you go scroll all the way to the bottom of the page, and they're skinny dudes. They're like some skinny white dude, Mexican dude, and then 3 years later, they're morbidly obese. Like it's disgusting fat bodies. Excuse my French. Well, I say that because they're literally like 500 pounds in the span of 3 years. That don't even make any sense.
That doesn't make no sense.
But when you look at their videos, every other day they got like 10 Big Macs, a whole 3 pizzas in front of them, buckets of fries. Then they throw like cheese buckets on them out, and they're just eating for like 2 hours straight. And they're just laughing and giggling and talking about nothing. And that's like for 3 years straight, bro. And you think it's a joke at first, and then they look up and they're just obese. Then they get even more obese. And then now they're having heart issues and they're having heart failure. This guy's like 28. He's like 28. Yes, exactly, sis. Exactly. It's Nico Cotto? Nico Avocado. Yeah, bro. But it's bad. But that's just as bad as eating pepperoni pizza. No, that's actually worse. That's worse. I'm gonna be real. That's worse. You're literally killing yourself every single day you do that.
It's a bad temper.
Or over drinking, getting drunk, slizzing every single day. That's also a sin. And there's many more. There's many more. But what we do is we get comfortable with the sins that we've conquered. Meaning, I came in, I got taught the little of the Bible that I know, I'm strong in, and that becomes the focus of my faith. So I've conquered the weed, I've conquered the pork, I've conquered the tattoos, I've conquered the what else? What other thing? I conquered the dress code. Yeah. So when someone comes in, I'm strong now. And those 5 arenas, I'm strong as cuss. I don't know why I'm saying that. I'm very strong. I'm not gonna say what. There's a movie out. Oh man, I used to watch it with the war back in the day, bro. It's like these little puppets out. Anyway, instead of saying bad words, say like what the cuss. It's like what the cuss this, what the cuss that. It's dumb, but it was
place it from curse.
It was a funny movie, bro. I can't think of it right now. The point is, we get strong in these certain arenas, and then we think, okay, I'm just gonna flex on these people that don't know any better, who got obvious sin that they obviously weed heads. So I'm gonna let you know how you just off. You're the most off guy in the world because you're smoking that weed, and that's idolatry. True. Or you just don't have the dress code. So I'm gonna blast you on dress code. Because why can't you figure out by being modest? Why can't you figure out stop self-adorning yourself? Why can't you figure out that you got to wear fringes? I figured it out. Why can't you figure it out? That's the mentality that Israel was in. Who were born in Israel were flexing on non-born Israelites. So if we can relate on that scale, imagine being born in that culture. And that's your strength.
They were flexing on what they were naturally strong at
Yeah.
versus emphasizing their weak elements and strengthening themselves in that arena, making it about.
It's like if you were born in Mexico and you got a cousin born in America, and when that cousin comes over to Mexico and they sound crazy, they get called what? No sabos. You and no sabo. You and no sabo. You're gringo. Like I got just as much Mexican blood as you do, but because I got two languages in my head. You got one, but I got two, and my second one's a little iffy because I don't speak it every single day. You judging, you clowning me every single day. What you got?
I learned something new. It was at the mall. Like, I was like, this is correct. He was like, nah, I don't speak Spanish. I'm a coconut.
I've heard that one too.
What? Coconut.
What's it? Is another one like polvo? Is it like turkey?
No,
There's another word for it. I forgot.
it's a pocho.
Pocho. Yeah,
But pocho is just
that's another one.
just somebody that's of Mexican heritage or a Mexican but born in America or
Yeah, they Hispanics, right?
Not in Mexico.
Like Hispanics.
What? Hispanic is a broad term. It's talking about Israel. It's talking about Mexican.
It's not a real Mexican, basically.
Basically, that's not from Mexico.
It's a part that's born in America.
That's not.
It's a part born in America,
I've heard those conversations.
and their parents was born in Mexico, but because they go to American schools and they're around people speaking English all day,
Americanized.
their Spanish is kind of wax hot.
Yeah.
Because after a while, you stop reading in Spanish, you stop really talking to people. You talk at the house, but it's not a constant thing, so it's not getting reinforced. So you might have a 6-year-old vocabulary, but these guys, 15, got 15-year-old vocabulary. It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
What am I saying? That judgment, the natural-born Mexican is judging his cousin who came over because they're not strong in their language. That's a small scale. You don't speak it as fluent as me. You sound kind of weird. You sound goofy. Or for me, I went to Oklahoma. I spoke proper. I don't think I speak that proper. But when you're comparing to Dallas guys, Dallas cats, they're like, oh, I know you ain't from Dallas. Yeah, nah, you don't talk like us. What does that mean? Nah, you went to a white school, didn't you? Oh, my goodness. Okay. So because I pronounce all my words, I went to a white
You
school.
enunciate.
He said, where you from? I said, I'm from San Antonio. He said, oh, that makes sense. What does that mean? What does that mean? Nah, yeah, you ain't like us because you don't got that tang. You don't got that twang. I'm like, man, what are you talking about? What are you saying right now? I'm getting judged for not being black enough. I look just like you.
Yeah, your black card.
But bro, you had to fight for your black card. Literally, you had to fight for your black card out there in the jungle. Right? I went to a white school. You ain't like us because you're black. You went to a black school. You're definitely like us either because you're not black enough. So I'm just out here in the middle. I don't know what's going on.
Both sides.
And then my last name was Reyes, but I didn't speak Spanish, so I definitely I ain't getting no love from them either. So it was like, nah, bro, you just ain't getting no love, you dog. The point is, because I didn't have that strength, I wasn't strong in their culture, so to speak. I didn't fit in with them, and there was a little drift between us. But how much more intensified was it when you're in Jerusalem, ancient Jerusalem, and you grew up with the law, and you grew up with it, and it's not part of your culture, and it's second nature. I grew up, I knew pork was off. That was nothing. I knew smoking was wrong. I knew I couldn't get tattoos. I knew I couldn't do a lot of things. That was nothing. That wasn't hard to follow, because that was my culture. What was hard is you gotta love your brother, even though that brother offended you. Because that's not easy. I don't care how much knowledge you got. That's never going to be easy. Or I have to be open to be defrauded because he's a man or woman trying to be faithful. Or I got to give my life up more than what I already have. To me, when I was a kid, I thought just following the laws was giving my life up. I thought not going to the pizza parties was giving my life up. I thought not going to the club on Fridays was giving my life up. I thought not smoking with the hangout groups was giving my life up. Then I realized that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the beginning. But for some people, that's their whole walk. That's their whole. That to get over that little tip is their whole battle. And now the challenge is, I can't judge you because that's your battle. I can't look down on you because you can't get over that one hump. Now it goes into only the Most High can do in that. But my job is to continue to teach you, inspire you, and show you how you got to keep changing. But if that's as far as you go, that's just as far as you go.
I don't know if you got
Yeah.
Romans chapter 9 in there, but Romans chapter 9 goes into.
Pull it. I did my fill already, so you can roll.
My fault, not Romans chapter 9. Let me see. Hold on. It might be 14.
What are we talking about?
Talking about the those that are strong in the law are not supposed to look down on them. Chapter 14 and verse.
I don't have that, but I have another one. While you find that, I don't want to
It's just that first verse now.
Find
It's
it.
14. and one.
Keep looking for it.
Romans chapter 14, verse 1.
Oh, you found it? Okay, read it. Yeah.
Him that is weak in the faith, receive ye, but not to doubtful disputes.
Right. So all it's talking about those that are strong in the law, that been here for a long period of time, those that been practicing the customs here. It says, read it again.
Romans 14, verse 1. Him that is weak in the faith, receive ye.
Right. So the strong in the law are supposed to be receiving the weak, meaning that those that fall short to the laws of the Bible, that don't practice the same customs that we practice, that have their own traditions, that have their own customs, that fall short to the Most High in Christ.
Okay.
All right.
That off there? That off there?
That's pretty much.
Give me this one as well to add on to that. Ecclesiastes 28 and verse 10. Man, I hope we can get through this.
You said Ecclesiastes what?
Ecclesiastes 28 and verse 10.
28 and verse
Ready?
10.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ecclesiastes 28 and 10. As the matter of the fire is, so it burneth. And as a man's strength is, so is his wrath. And according to his riches, his anger riseth. And the stronger they are, which contend, the more they will be inflamed.
What this verse is saying is, it says, as a man's strength is, so is his wrath. The more confident, the more sure you are in yourself, the more sure you are in your belief system, the more strong and more passionate you are about enforcing said belief system. Now let's take that into a spiritual sense. If I'm super strong in one part of my faith, that's my focus. That's going to be the focus of my counsels. It's like a brother. When he learns a new skill or gets a new information about the Bible or overcomes a certain aspect in this work, gets a new virtue, that becomes his personality, so to speak. I'm not throwing anybody out there. I'll throw myself out there. Like, for me, I'm learning a language. That kind of became the focus of a lot of my counsels. Because I understood more of the spirit in learning a language. The discipline it takes, the time it takes to lock into something, how your mind changes when you're learning something new. Or for a man who was maybe changed his diet. He's super sharp, super disciplined in his diet. A lot of his counsels might lean towards you gotta have a more disciplined diet. Because that discipline is the same in the Bible. Because the spirit in which it came from comes from the Most High. So I can make you see my point better because I live what I'm talking about in this aspect of my life. So I become what about that? Passionate. My faith is in my clothes because I'm what about that? I'm passionate. Because that's how I represent my faithfulness. I become passionate about my food choices because I've conquered that already. And I can show you my faith through that conquer, through that win in my life. That's not a bad thing. But when we make that when we tell ourselves, we get too boasted up for having these virtues, these skills, that's when we start slipping in the spirit.
Right.
Because as strong as you might be in this one aspect, there's hundreds of more that you have not conquered yet. So, I think that background and giving more detail to the culture of our people was very important to go into before we got heading into this story, because we understand what was Paul battling against and why was there such a debate amongst the Israelites. Let's go back to Acts 15, verse 10.
Acts 15 is verse 10. Now therefore, why tempt ye the Most High to put a yoke upon the neck of the disciples, which neither our fathers nor we were able to bear?
So these Israelites that are converts, you guys got to be more considerate on who you're talking to. We, as a nation who's grew up with this, who's lived this our entire life, still have not mastered everything that's involved in the spirit. So why are you putting this pressure on these new converts who have no foundation of Christ whatsoever? This is the first time they're hearing this, man. Cut them some slack is what they're saying. Keep reading.
Verse 11. But we believe that through the grace of the Lord Yahushua, we shall be saved, even as they.
Meaning, you're not better than them. You had a head start, yes. But that don't mean they can't be saved too, if they get taught and they get the right structure. Read on.
Says, then all the multitude kept silence and gave audience to Barnabas and Paul, declaring what miracles and wonders the Most High had wrought among the Gentiles by them.
So Paul's explaining through the method, through teaching the Spirit of Christ, and not maybe enforcing as much the law on his new Gentiles, on his new congregation. He got a major result. He got a lot of new converts. He got a lot of people now professing Christ's name, making substantial changes. He's got congregations that are in the works. There's major improvement or major faith moves going on. Read on.
And after they had held their peace, James answered, saying, Men and brethren, hearken unto me. Simeon have declared how the Most High at the first did visit the Gentiles to take out of them a people for his name.
Come.
And to this agree the words of the prophets, as it is written, After this I will return and will build again the tabernacle of David, which is fallen down. And I will build again the ruins thereof, and I will set it up, that the residue of men might seek after the Lord, and all the Gentiles, upon whom my name is called, saith the Lord, who doeth all these things.
So what James is, James is coming to realize is the scriptures are now that was spoken about in Amos 9 about how the Most High is going to build back up his temple that had fallen apart is now coming to fruition. Now we're getting those lost spread sheep finally getting revived again. They're coming out of their darkened state. They're coming out of their ignorance. They're finally realizing that they had to serve the Most High. And that is a positive thing. That is letting us know that the scriptures are coming true. It's reconfirming their own faith. Keep reading.
It says, Known unto the Most High are all his works from the beginning of the world. Wherefore my sentence is that we trouble not them, which from among the Gentiles are turned to the Most High.
Now he's going to start listing some of the standards that should be the mandatory standards for all the churches across the board. Because we're also not saying there should be no laws being followed. There should be just straight anarchy, and we just love God. We just love Jesus so much, and y'all don't have to follow any rules. That's not what they're saying either. But let's give them a foundation, and you, Paul, expand on said foundation. Take whatever we give you as the template, and you build on that. Pretty much telling Paul what to do, but that's fine. He's gonna accept that. So the Israel's not trying to kill him every 5 seconds. So let's read what he said. Let's see some of the things he said. Verse 20.
But that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions.
Another thing I want to point out is because there's a lot of Israelite congregations and camps that think Paul is this wicked guy.
Yeah.
That just are anti-Paul because he teaches against the laws of God. He teaches against following the Most High. They must not read Acts because he's obviously following what the head church, the principal church, the church that was ordained by Christ, told him to do. And we're going to find out there was no mention of circumcision. There was no mention of a lot of things that a lot of Israelites might see as blasphemy, might seem as how dare he. Now, does that mean Paul never evolved in teaching them more and more? No. But he's giving them a template, a starting point. What is their Christ outline right now? First day in the door, what are they being told? What do they have to abstain from right now? What's a feasible goal that they can attain in a short time? That's what he's saying. You don't think that was happening during the time of Hezekiah? For those who remember the time of Hezekiah. Time of Hezekiah, the entire northern tribe had already been taken out of Israel, but had come back to celebrate the Passover. Hezekiah invited the remnants in the northern tribes that had just come back from the Assyrian captivity and invite them back to the Passover. Do you really think all those Israelites that had just came back from captivity for being wicked and not following God's laws were righteous and clean that day? No. No, they were not. But what was more important? That you got in these doors. That you got in these doors. Because once you're in these doors, then we can start working on you. Then we can start working on your mind. Then we can start getting you rebuilt back up. So you can come back what? Next year. And get more. And then you're going to look up, and now we can start rebuilding those cities again. That was done in the Old Testament. So this is what's being redone in the New. It's nothing new. It's nothing different. But you got to look at it in perspective. Who are they dealing with? What people are they dealing with? They're not dealing with Israelites that are born in Israel. They're dealing with beasts, individuals that never had God in their life. So read that in verse 20.
But that we write unto them that they abstain from pollutions of idols, and from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood.
So they were told they got to get rid of the idols, the pollution of idols, and that can encompass a lot of different things. And what we're going to do is, the next time we have a class, we're going to break down more of what this means on a larger scale. But on the short term, no idols, no fornication. Stop dealing with your moms. Stop dealing with relatives. Yeah. Stop being brute beasts. Stop dealing with the porniest spirit.
Yeah.
You gotta change that right now.
No broken wrist.
To what?
No broken wrist. I'm trying to keep
Okay. No broken wrist.
No broken wrist.
Yeah.
Don't.
Definitely no broken wrist. No pollution from idols. No strangled things from blood. Or no blood and nothing strangled. Read on. 21.
Right.
Never heard that before.
For Moses of old time have in every city them that preach him, being read in synagogues.
Now, I couldn't find this verse in the Old Testament specifically, but we're going to have to just take their word for it. That this must have been in their records, meaning this was the same thing that Moses was teaching the synagogues every Sabbath day. That meaning Moses also gave them a starting point of what not to do, what's the immediate thing you got to change right now while you're learning all these other laws in the process. All they're doing is just reenacting or restating the same things as already said in the old time. Keep reading.
It says, being read in the synagogue every Sabbath day. Then pleased the apostles and elders with the whole church to send chosen men of their own company to Antioch with Paul and Barnabas.
Okay, let that go. We're going to come back to this at the end of the class. Let's go to Matthew 9 and verse 35. All that verse was saying is to make sure this was getting done, they sent Barnabas with Paul so that even the Israelites, the people that were revolting and that were complaining, they knew what Paul was doing was getting backed by the head church. So at least that would back off the faithful followers from Paul. They didn't back off all the Israelites because not all of them were locked into the first church, to Peter's church. But it did give him some leeway with the with the followers. So let's go to Matthew 9 and verse 35 through 37.
Matthew chapter 9, verse 35. Yahushua went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them, because they fainted and were scattered abroad, as sheep having no shepherd.
You know what Christ realized when he was going, making his rounds and teaching? Remember, this is in Israel. This is within the people that grew up doing this, and how lost they were, how detached they were from the Spirit. And he had compassion because they were so lost. They were so far from righteousness. And there was so much work to be done. This is what he's instilling and teaching also into his disciples. So when they're making that choice to let off on Paul and give him an easier standard to teach to new converts, they're taking it from their testimonies watching Christ, who understood if Israel, who was born in Israel with the standard that they lived by and that was in their culture, couldn't figure it out, then how much far gone we out in the jungle, out in the wilderness, out in these other countries? This is just common sense. Keep reading.
Verse 37. Then said he unto his disciples, the harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few.
There's a lot of work to be done, and not a lot of people that are willing to take on this job. Let that go. Ezekiel 36, verse 18 through 23. Now, how we got to this state, this destroyed state as a nation, was still due to our actions. 36 and verse 18.
Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 18.
It wasn't a random occurrence. Read on.
Wherefore I poured my fury upon them for the blood that they had shed upon the land, and for their idols wherewith they had polluted it. And I scattered them among the heathen, and they were dispersed in the countries. According to their way and according to their doings, I judged them.
As a recompense for our wickedness, we got scattered, we got disconnected, and this is why we were that much more polluted as the generations went on. Remember, this is during the time of Ezekiel, meaning this is about 500 to, let's say about 500 years until we get to Christ's point. So we got a 500-year period detached from your culture, your history, and the righteous standard. So if we were bad before, you can only imagine how much worse we got. You can only imagine how much more polluted we got. Keep reading.
Verse 20. And when they entered unto the heathen, whither they went, they profaned my holy name.
We got worse when we went into the heathen. We were already off. We were already profaning his holy name. But when we got with the heathen, we did double. We doubled down on our wickedness. Read.
When they said to them, these are the people of the Most High, and are gone forth out of his land.
And we're professing to be righteous. We're professing to be holy people of God, destroying his name amongst the heathen. You're righteous, but you're mass murderers. You're righteous, but you're mass abusers. You're righteous, but you're mass idolaters. You're righteous, but you're defiling your temple every day in every which way. You're tapping into every type of lust, every type of distraction, every type of temptation. But you're God's people. That's what it is about you're profaning God's name. Because we were still claiming our heritage. We were still saying we were God's chosen people. We didn't want to lose our name, but we weren't showing it through our actions. Read on.
Verse 21. But I had pity for mine holy name, which the house of the Israel have profaned among the heathen, whither they went. Therefore say unto the house of Israel, thus saith the Most High Power, I do not this for your sakes, O house of Israel, but for mine holy name's sake, which ye have profaned among the heathen, whither ye went. And I will sanctify my great name, which was profaned among the heathen, which ye have profaned in the midst of them. And the heathen shall know that I am the Most High, saith the Most High Power, when I shall be sanctified in you before their eyes.
So he's reminding us that he's not inspiring us, putting knowledge into us, giving us that second chance because we deserve it. He did it. He woke us up back then, and he woke us up now for his name's sake. Because he promised our forefathers, I choose your people. Even though they hate me, they rebel against me, they do everything opposite of what I tell them to do, I'm still going to rebuild them back up. Because I made a promise. But now we're sitting in this situation. And we're even more defiled than before. Even more destroyed than before. How would you build someone up like that? How do you start someone from zero, from negative? From addiction. Addictions is negative. Habits is one thing. When you got an addiction, you're negative. Because I got to first break your addiction first before I even get to the deep, intricate works of the Bible. Let me get you off of your drugs first. Let me get you off of your extreme concupiscence, lust first. Let me get you off of your alcoholism first. Let me get you off of these super bad habits first before we even get into the major aspects of your spirit. The other major aspects of your spirit. But how long does that take? For anybody that's worked with anybody with addiction, how long does it take for them to finally stop and kick their addiction?
10 years.
It takes years. Years. How about addiction? There's an addiction where you got a bad tongue. You got a sharp mouth. Where every time you get defensive, I'm attacking you. Because that's my natural protection that I grew up from my childhood. That I learned as a self-defense mechanism. When someone's attacking me, I shoot back. I fire back. I cuss you out back. How about that's an addiction? How long does it take for men and women to get over that aspect of the spirit? To where they can take a check, take a correction. Not check, just a small correction. And not get defensive. Not get the frowny face. Not want to cuss somebody back out. Not want to defend themselves because they feel attacked. That alone takes years. But we're talking about intricate works of the law. Yeah, we can polish you up. Or the other method is, which is what the Pharisees did, is, you got all these problems, but just change dress code and you're going to be all right. Change the dress code. Make sure you look like you're on point and you're going to be all right. But you got all this sickness in you that is not getting worked on. That's getting overlooked. This is what Christ was trying to avoid. So, let that go. We got enough on that point. Let's go into some of these battles, these challenges that we're coming in from the world having to deal with. 1 Timothy 1 and verse 9 through 10. 1 Timothy 1, verse 9 through 10.
1 Timothy 1 and 9. Knowing this, that the law is not made for a righteous man.
The law is not made for someone who's got to figure it out. The law was not made for someone who from their birth, they was locked in. And this is part of their culture. And it's not just part of their culture, but they also live it. Mentally and physically. That's not what the law was made for. The law was made for us, who come out the streets, who are influenced by influencers, who are influenced by bad parental examples, who are influenced by friends, homeboys, homegirls, who are influenced by the rappers of the world, who are influenced by the pop stars of the world. That's who the law was made for. Because those people, those influencers are going to make you do these characteristics. And you don't know how much you're defiling yourself by doing said characteristics. Let's keep reading.
God, knowing this, the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless and disobedient, for the ungodly and for the sinners, for unholy and profane.
Remember, those sinners are the ones that break the law, obviously. The ungodly, the sinners, the unholy, the profane. Read on.
For murderers of fathers and murderers of mothers.
Keep reading.
For manslayers. For whoremongers.
Now, it went to the extremes first. It went to the satanic people. Just killing babies. Sacrificing babies. Drinking blood. Okay, that's extreme. That's the unholy, profane. The murders of fathers. Murders of mothers. Okay, those are crazy guys. That's not me. I'm not that bad. I'm not that crazy. Okay, it gets even more detailed. Keep reading.
Verse 10, for whoremongers.
I just can't stop sleeping around. Or my sleeping around is the phase I went through. That was just my phase. That was just my high school phase. That was just my college phase. That was just a certain time in my life. I had a bad breakup. It's justifiable. That's what the law's for. Read on.
For them that defile themselves with mankind.
The flip-floppers. Well, I had a phase in college. I was curious. I'm trying everything now. That's what the law's for. Read.
For men stealers.
Read on.
For liars.
Men stealers is kidnappers. I mean, that's what the law's for. Read.
For liars. For perjured persons.
And I wanted to say, even with the men stealers, it's harder for us to kind of see how that is a common thing. But when you go into these impoverished countries, that's more common than you think. And it's less, it's still shamed socially, obviously. But because it's so common, and there's no regulations behind it, at least Esau will pretend that they're doing something about it, which they're really not. We already know the Epstein and all that stuff. But when I say there's hundreds of thousands of people getting stolen every day,
It's just business.
it's just business to them. That's just part of the life. If you get caught slipping, if your parents got caught slipping, that's on them.
They even became skillful in it because they had this thing where they put like a card or a slip on the car.
Yeah.
And if you go to it, if you touch it, you automatically get knocked out. It's like that.
Well, that's they say. I was just telling my rib about that today because what people are doing is they're putting this this drug that goes through your fingers. It goes when you touch it, it will poison you. So even like let's say they put on your window, they put this powder on the window. It's a $100 bill, and you get off your window, and that poison is on your finger. It will poison you and knock you out. That's the scared ones. I'm talking about you in a third world country, and they're on bikes, and they're just grabbing the kid while they're driving the bike, and you're the parent like, what? Someone stop this man, and no one does anything about it. This is another Tuesday for him. That's what I'm talking about. That's how common it is in these other countries. We're not seeing kids get snatched up like that. They're a little more tactful about it, but it's blatant. People will, if you got a bike driving close to the sidewalk, it's automatically assumed to move your kid to the side. Because you don't know why they're so close to the sidewalk right now. What are you about to do? You better rob my phone? You better take my camera? You better take my kid? It's so bad that you got to have a burner phone on you because you know it's going to get stolen anyway. You got to have the rat phone because the rat's going to take it. That's literally what they say. I'm just saying. This is who the law is for. But who is this? It's us. This is us. We did these things. We do these things. And those to come are doing these things right now, not knowing how off and how wicked they are. Keep reading.
And if there be any other thing that is contrary.
Now go back up. So we have men stealers and we have what?
I read them all. Let me see what.
For men stealers, for
Men
liars.
stealers, for liars.
For liars. We don't think lying is that bad either. But lying is. It's a reflection of your character. It's a reflection of your spirit. Lying is why you need the law. Read on.
For perjured persons.
I'm not sure what perjured means. Not gonna lie to you. I forgot the definition of that.
To the false swear, like kind of like a false oath.
Okay. Whether to make a false oath.
Like in a court.
You can't trust them in business. You can't trust them in anything.
You don't keep your word.
Okay. They're gonna lie to your face.
Yeah.
Take advantage of you.
Court, they call it perjury.
Shit, in the streets they call that finesse. They call it get got.
Lying under oath.
Yeah.
Take from a sucker. That's what they call it. Read on.
For perjured persons, and if there be any other thing that is contrary to sound
I mean,
doctrine.
there's an innumerable amount of other things that we know that people are doing in the dirt every single day that justifies or is the reason why they need God in their life. But all these things that we're doing is because we're lawless in the world. So this is why the foundation, this is why the structure was needed for these individuals. But where do you start? What do you focus on immediately? That's the conversation, and this is what the standard, or this is what the churches at the time were trying to figure out. We got all this sickness in front of us. How do we attack this step by step? Where do we go from here? Because everyone's case is different. So let that go. Let's go to Matthew 23, verse 23 through 26.
Matthew chapter 23 and verse 23. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith.
You know what this confirms? Mind you, who's talking right now?
Jesus Christ.
Christ is talking. You know what this confirms? Christ has weightier matters. There's certain laws that Christ cares about a little more, that he prioritized a little more than others. So not all laws the same in order that should be attacked. What the Pharisees did is, let's get all the ornaments done. Let's get all the ceremonial acts of the law done. Let's get the dress codes done. Let's get the look done first. And then maybe focus on the real hate we got inside of us. Maybe deal with the real sickness that's inside of our heart. But Christ said, you did it backwards. You shouldn't have omitted the weightier matters of the law. The parts of the law that was really going to define if you were going to make it or not. That was going to decide if you were worth my consideration in the kingdom. It says the judgment, being fair with one another, dealing with each other justly, not actively trying to hurt one another, not actively trying to defraud one another. That's a weightier matter. Mercy, having forgiveness, being able to be hurt when someone defrauds you, and still be able to give to them, still be able to consider them, still be able to look at them in a positive light. That's a weightier matter of the law. And it says what? And it says faith, believing in the Most High's way, believing that He is the standard that you have to follow. Those are the weightier matters. Everything else, you add on afterwards. Read on.
These are ye to have done, and not leave the other undone.
That doesn't mean the others you forget about, but what's the priority? Let's get this stuff done first, this weightier aspect first, and then we'll start adding on to the exterior.
So like your piety towards the Most High, your morals, your civility towards one another.
Come on.
Then the ceremony.
Your household. Get your household done first before you want to get all fancy. You want to get all fancy and stylish. Not saying, Passover's coming up, so not saying having beautiful colored garments is the problem, but some Israelites put more spirit into the garment than they will their spirit.
Yeah.
They put more thought process into their garment than they will their spirit, where they're lacking. They put more thought process in how they look in the eyes of men more than are they actually changing. How do men look at me? How do the sisters look at me? How does the camp look at me? Let me project more of what I want them to see. What faith do I want them to see? That's more thought process, more spirit, more brain power to that. Then you actually change the ugly in you that makes you look jacked up in the first place. What you got?
No, just a simple statement. All the spirit goes into the garment and not the brother.
Exactly.
The brother in front of you.
Exactly. Because it's easier. Because that's their what? Strength. If that's their strength, that's what they focus on. I'm not saying garment brothers and sisters is a problem. What I'm saying is there's weightier matters. And what are you giving more of your mind to? And can you honestly say, I put more work and spirit into fixing that internal, fixing the side of me where I had no mercy, the side of me where I was extremely faithless, the side of me that couldn't judge properly or couldn't look at brothers in a positive way. Did I put more focus in that or how I look every day to the exterior? This is what Christ is hitting these Pharisees on. Keep reading.
Verse 24. Ye blind guides, which strain at a gnat and swallow a camel.
Both are defiled things. But I'm going to look at the smallest part of you that's messed up. But I'm in taking the most wicked side. I'm allowing the biggest flaw in me to stay. To persist. Keep reading.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye make clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess.
Everyone's inner weakness is a little different. For those that are higher powered, their focus was, let me look as clean as possible so I can keep getting more money. Let me look as strong as possible so I can keep getting more, keep upgrading more. But for us is, let me look as strong as possible on the outside so I can keep getting the respect that I want. So I can keep getting the attention that I want. So I can keep getting the love that I want. But I'm not truly changing my thought process. Every day, it's more of a battle to suppress that wickedness in me than to actually change it. I'm doing way more work suppressing the wickedness than actually working on the wickedness. Than counseling sufficiently enough till that wickedness gets out of me. Confessing sufficiently enough. Putting myself in these awkward environments where that wickedness comes out so I can be exposed. Because that hurts more. It's more of a threat to my ego. It's more of a threat to the person I want to present to everyone else around me. But that's the real work. That's the weightier matters of the law. Keep reading.
Thou blind Pharisee, clean first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also.
So the standard in which the Apostle Peter and his churches are pushing, and what he wants Paul and his church to push is focus on the inside first. Let's get these individuals, if their inside of their cup got mold, if it got fungus in it, then let's get that out first before we start working on the outside. That has got some dirt. If there's sickness is overwhelming inside, then let's get that minimized. Let's get that sickness controlled before we worry about the exterior. This is why you got Paul's right-hand man, being Timothy, walking around in togas. Imagine now, Israel Day. You got a teacher like Paul, with the respect he had. If a camp saw him and his number 2 wearing some Greek clothing, what would be the statement? This brother's out of order. He needs to lock in. Change his outfits. You know that's what they would say. They said it back then too. That was the only reason why Timothy changed in the first place. Because the Israelites was hating. They was putting that much pressure on him. Not seeing past the point. Hey, I'm working on this guy's inner first. That's my focus right now with him. That's where I'm taking him right now. Let him worry about that stuff later. He's got more work to do on the inside before I start bombarding him with all the external things that you guys have to pick and choose about. It's a mentality switch. Let's go to, let's jump up, same chapter. Matthew 23 and 1 through 5. Just to prove it, this is where the thought process and the understanding from the brothers in Acts, the apostles in Acts, where they got their information from. Read that.
Verse 1. Then spake Yahushua to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore, whatsoever they bid you, observe. That observe and do, but do not ye after their works.
So what Christ was telling his apostles is, I know these guys are hypocrites. I know these guys are off. Just follow them, but don't follow their character. Don't follow their example. Just do what they say. So you stay at least in alignment. Read on.
It says, but do not ye after their works, for they say, and do not. For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders. But they themselves would not move them with one of their fingers.
And this is why James was saying this to the council, to the elders. He said, look, we're not going to do to Paul and his congregation what the Pharisees were doing to us, what the Pharisees were doing to the people. And they're putting all these burdens, all this excess structure, and these excess rules and regulations that they themselves have not completed. They themselves have not lived out. We're going to change the structure, change the narrative, and give these people a better shot in completing and getting closer to Christ. Finish it up in verse 5.
Verse 5. But all their works they do for to be seen of men.
Because what they're doing is so they can get the public approval from the people. So people look at them as the righteous and the strong ones. But that's not the nature in which we want our congregation to be built off of. It's not about looking strong in front of the face of people. In fact, when you read about Paul, he was all about looking weak in the flesh. I'm not going to take from you guys. I'm not going to exploit you men or you women. All I want for you guys to do is listen. And if you listen and you grow and you change, then that's all I want. And I will be accountable for my life, my struggles, my weaknesses, and just don't judge me for being weak in the flesh. Paul was the complete opposite of what the Pharisees were pushing at the time, and which Christ was scorning and was stinging. Did you finish that? All right, finish that up.
But all their works they do for to be seen of men. They make broad their phylacteries and enlarge the borders of their garments.
So their whole point is, I got to look the part, I got to look righteous, so that I can maintain my respect and my power. Let that go. Let's go back to Acts 15, verse 24, and we'll jump to 28 and verse 29. Okay, here, I might get that.
Acts chapter 15. Is that verse 22?
24.
24, come.
And then jump to verse 28 after.
Come. For as much as we have heard that certain which went out from us have troubled you with words, subverting your soul, saying, ye must be circumcised and keep the law, to whom we gave no such commandment.
So again, we clarified that they gave their standard to Paul. They gave their standard to what Paul had to follow or enforce on his people. But what happens from there, that's up to Paul. And that will be next class, explaining how Paul took this foundation and how he built on it. He didn't just stick to, y'all can't fornicate, no strangled meats, no blood, and no abstaining from pollutions. He didn't just stick to that foundation. He added on to it. But it was important to know that the main church at the time said that's all they had to follow. That was the only laws they had to follow for them to be in alignment with Christ. That's very important. Now, what lets us know is we are responsible for the standard in which our elders set as the laws in our camp. And we're responsible, after we've mastered that standard, to keep multiplying and keep learning more and striving more into perfection. Follow the initial steps. Follow the initial standard of what you're told is right and wrong. And as you keep reading and learning, then you add on from there. That's now your responsibility. So, while being guided by your elders. Verse 28 through 29.
Verse 28. For it seemed good to the Holy Spirit and to us to lay upon you no greater burden than these necessary things.
Again, there are certain things that you had to change from right now. If you're going to start your path and your walk with the Most High, this has to change immediately. Read.
That ye abstain from meats offered to idols, and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication, from which if ye keep yourselves, ye shall do well, fare ye well. So the congregation that was in Jerusalem, their notion was, let's give them these couple of things to start with, and if you can keep this, if you can be responsible for this, you're on the right track. That don't say you're perfect. That doesn't say your journey's over. That don't say you're righteous yet, but you're doing well. From there, Paul got you. What you got?
No, I'm just saying because people always debate and say Paul was freaking certain thing. He was
Exactly.
told keep the law.
That's the
He
point.
just chose specific ones
To
to
force.
focus on this.
Because every camp needs something different.
Yeah.
Because how about there's certain sicknesses that one camp has that others don't have? And what is the sickness I need to work on with this camp that I might not need to force as hard on this other camp? For instance, if one camp, their demon is pork demon, but this other camp, they don't even have pork in the city. Do I need to sit here and force the pork demon on the non-pork city? That's not going to be the focus. Let's focus on whatever is the most sickest part in this camp right now. Get them to change that first. This other camp, let me give them their standard. But you know what? That's the same type of development that's done in the camp. Because every person's sickness is different. Every person is a little bit different development plan. A little bit different structure to work on their particular spirit. That's the benefit of being in a camp. Because you might have the overview, But every person is getting trained and developed a little bit differently because their spirit needs something else. Some spirits need more discipline. Some spirits need to relax a little bit. They're going too hard. Some spirits are over righteous. Some spirits ain't righteous enough. What does everyone need to have? That's why it's so important knowing the flock, knowing the people that's among you. So I can give them what they need. That's why we have so many classes, because these classes are to hit particular people. Every day is to hit a certain person. It's not going to hit everybody all at once. But someone needs to hear the class at a particular time. Everyone needs their individual game plan that is given to them by their elders. That's given to them by their guiders. That's why the Most High gave you guides, gave you teachers, gave you gave you leaders, so that you can figure out what you're missing in the spirit, because you can't see it within. So, we finished that in Acts 15. Let's finish this last verse, Galatians 5, verse 16 through 18. And that will get us started to the fruits of the spirit and lust in the flesh whenever I get to teach that.
Galatians chapter 5, verse 16.
Because now what we're going to do is we're going to see, okay, what did Paul see and what is his new standard that he's going to have on this? What standard is he going to add on to this? That was that he's going to force on his congregation. Give me that.
Galatians chapter 5, verse 16. This I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Verse 18.
Yep, 17 through 18.
Okay. Verse 17. For the flesh lusteth against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary to one, and these are contrary the one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would.
So this internal battle that you're having, there's a part of you that's the lust of the flesh, and we're going to find out later or another time that lust of the flesh is all that sickness that you brought over from your life before meeting God. All those temptations, all that distraction that's around you every single day, that's warring against your spiritual or your new spiritual conscience. Because now that you're coming into Christ and you're focusing on your faith, you now have a responsibility to do what? Change. If I say I'm a new being in Christ, we read it in 1 John 3 and 4 through 10, I can't sin no more in Christ. So now my conscience is starting to evolve. While it's starting to evolve, I'm not battling my old self. I'm battling club me. I'm battling loose me. I'm battling drug me. I'm battling alcohol me. I'm battling striker me. I'm battling rage me. I'm battling hateful me. I'm battling slothful me. Lustful me. Lazy me. Now I got to battle all these things if I want to be changed man or woman in Christ. This is the lust of the flesh versus the spirit of the spirit of the Most High. Read on, verse 18.
Verse 18. But if ye be led of the Spirit, ye are not under the law.
And this is the point of what we're saying. That doesn't mean we're not following the law. It means what is the source, what is the principles in which you're getting your understanding and you're focusing your change from. Is it just the words from the Old Testament, or is it the life that was lived by Christ, which was the physical embodiment of the magnified version of the law? That's all that means. And with that, we're going to conclude the class. The water for those that are watching online, the water for those that are watching in class. Again, we'll get into this next stage. It's going to be explaining what is the flesh or the lust of the flesh and what is the spirit of the law that Paul's talking about here. And it will give us a clear understanding of what Paul was trying to enforce with his congregations, adding on to what standard was already put on him by Peter's churches. And with that, we'll say shalom. We'll see you guys tomorrow. The water for coming out. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.